I'm sure you'll be glad to see our backs.
No way.
What did I do? What did I do?
Okay. So we are live streaming. I'm just going to go ahead and start the webinar, okay?
Okay,
So we should be, there's the recording. Okay, what else do I have to do? I have to share screen enable, okay. And there's no chat anymore, so I don't have to worry about that. So I think that's everything I have to do. Let me see about the participants.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah,
but now I can't hear you. I must have an issue down on this end. Hold on.
So not to be hyper technical, but logging out and logging in always works for me.
I always mute, I always turn off the volume in my computer
Yeah.
at night.
I just had a lot of trouble logging in. I tried it many times and finally.
Well, that's because the meeting didn't get convened by the usual process, so I
Right.
jumped in
Oh, I
at the
see.
last minute. So I see Mary Diericks. Is
I
she the
can't-
first
oh,
presenter?
shit.
Michelle.
Just a little reminder that if you can't hear us, we can still hear you.
Hold on.
Check your
Where's
audio
Paige?
setting. Make sure.
Um,
Paige is
here I
waving.
I got it. I got it.
Okay,
Can
good.
I make an announcement? I've jumped off of our Landmark West meeting to express some concerns, and then I'll leave you and your committee, or should I come back later?
Yeah, come back, see if we're still here. We have 2 items on the agenda.
Okay, what time do you want me back?
As soon as you can, as soon as you're finished.
Are you part of
As
the
soon as you
community?
think you can reasonably leave the other meeting.
Well, I've left it already, hoping that, well, just give me a time for me to be back so I can finish my
Try back
board
in an
meeting.
hour. Try
An
back
hour?
at
Okay,
7:30.
perfect. Thank you very much,
Hopefully,
ladies and
hopefully
gentlemen.
we'll be finished by then.
Right. I'm planning on that. Do we have any community members here, Mark?
There are 8 people, and I assume that some of them, I see Barbara Hoffman is the presenter on 330 West 72.
That's
And I
number
see
2.
Mary Diericks, who I think is the presenter on the other one.
All right. I'm-
So maybe I'll promote, which one do you want first?
Well, 229 West 71st.
So that's
I'm
Ms.
gonna get
Diericks.
started.
And we
So-
have one of our board members who's not a committee member that's well.
Who else is here, Klari?
Mark, do you want to make me a co-host and I can help promote people?
That would be great. I'm going to do it right now. I should have done that to Michele as well. So let me, I wasn't planning on doing this tonight, so I
Yeah, I
apologize. I'm
appreciate it.
catching up. All right, so first, Michele is a co-host.
Laura,
And then Susan, where are you? There you are.
And Klari, you're taking minutes?
Haven't taken any yet. Hasn't been interesting enough, but I will.
You didn't have an interesting enough day. I'm going to get started. It's 6:37 p.m. Good evening. Welcome to the April 14th, 2022 meeting of the CB7 Preservation Committee. My name is Michele Parker. I am the co-chair of this committee. Our other co-chair, Kay Karpen, cannot be here this evening on account of this religious holiday. The Preservation Committee consists of 10 people. I know that Paige will be in and out of the committee meeting. Josh won't be here. Our mandate is to review matters prior to consideration by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We review the application for the appropriateness of the proposed changes to the individually designated landmarks or districts, landmark districts on the Upper West Side. Klari, as I said, you'll keep minutes and you'll probably be asked to write resolutions. Let's have everybody else on the committee introduce themselves. Then non-committee members, non-committee board members. Let's do that first. We have Mark Diller, Peter
Hi.
Samton,
all right,
Jay Adolf, Madge Rosenberg, Susan
Hello.
Schwartz, Klari Neuwelt, and that's it for the committee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a quorum. I see one non-committee board member, that's Ira Michnick. And apart from the applicants, are there any other members on the community here? Are there any community members? You don't see any, Susan?
Hard to say. There are 6 people. Barbara Hoffman is the presenter on the next one.
Uh-huh.
Someone,
Gary.
Lisa Sharkey just raised your hand, I assume, because she's answering your question.
Okay, all right, we'll get
Gary
to you. all.
Wiseman is the presenter too.
Is he
Okay.
a presenter on yours, Mary?
Yeah,
All right, so I'm going to promote him so that he's with you if you need him.
Okay, thank you. The format of the meeting will be as follows. 1, to listen to the applicants with their application. For the committee to be able to ask questions during that presentation. For non-committee board members to ask questions pretty much after the presentation. For then the public to ask their questions. Then we'll close that part of the meeting and the committee will meet to discuss the proposal, the proposal and propose resolutions to vote on, or resolution to vote on. All right, thank you very much. Let's get started. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first one is 229 West 71st Street. This is the application for a certificate of appropriateness to add a 5th full floor and partial rooftop addition and add a full width, full height rear addition and replace the front and rear facades, cladding and fenestration. Sounds like a huge project. I went and looked at the property. You did too, Madge? Mark, you did? Anybody else look at this property? Madge, I can't hear you because you're muted, hon. Still can't hear you. Okay,
Michelle, I looked at it also.
you did too. Okay, so this may have come as a surprise when you read the item on the agenda, not so much when you looked at the property, and then this is how I did it, and then I looked at the application. All right, so we'll have the presenters present. Ready
thank
for
you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Mary Diericks, and I'm the preservation consultant on the project. And with me is Gary Wiseman, who is the architect with SDGI Architects.
Thank you.
Can we share the screen and I'll start the presentation?
You should have that power.
Share screen. All right, now we're going to do the big view. This is 229 West 71st Street. Recording on, shall we stop that? It's, as you said, an application to raise the building to 6 stories, front and back, new facade, a rear addition. It's the West End Collegiate Extension District. This is not a typical block. It goes from 71st to 72nd. 72nd is commercial. The block, that's the end of the district here. So it's not entirely in the district. The rest, there are row houses, a lot of big apartment buildings and flats buildings. And the smaller buildings also, especially on 72nd, they've also pretty much got extensions all the way to the rear. And so this 229 is nestled between 2 larger apartment buildings, which extend much farther back than 229. So it's a block with not only a lot of additions, but also a lot of just buildings that fill up or nearly fill up the lot. This is 229. Between the 2 apartment buildings, they're early 19th century by the same architect, Gaetan Aiello, who did a lot in the district. This is across the street, a mix of row houses and apartment buildings like the ones on next to 229. This is closer up of 229. This is 229 in about 1940 and 1980. It was built in 1884 as a row house, and it was altered in 1946 to 8, and altered somewhat after, say, about 1980. After 1948. So the landmarks designation report describes this as a building with a style as none, which is called a no style building. In this building from the 1880s, the cornice was removed, the trim was removed, the stoop was removed, the entrance was lowered to sidewalk level, a new facade was installed at the building line. The original row house was set back. And after 1948, the door was replaced, light fixtures were replaced, the parapet was rebuilt, and the windows were replaced. These are typical no-style buildings in the district. A lot of them are altered row houses, stripped, sometimes combined, but this is kind of what you see when you have these buildings that are called no style, as opposed to the typical the reason that the district was designated, which was for buildings from the 1880s to the 1920s that retained their architectural integrity and have architectural or otherwise historic significance. And they include row houses and flats buildings, institutions, apartment buildings, some commercial buildings that look like this. I'm going to pass this over to Gary, who's going to tell you about the project.
So good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. So as Mary has alluded to, and as you know, if you've seen the building, or obviously you've seen the photographs, the building really has no real features whatsoever. Really a nondescript building, kind of nestled between, you know, two other massive apartment buildings. Our intent is to remove the existing facade, raise the entry so that the building is entered at grade, have some connection at the what is technically the basement level, or the ground level and the first floor, to relate somewhat to the adjacent building on the left, which also has a limestone coining facade, limestone facade, and then coining above. So our intent is to do a limestone facade at the limestone or cast stone. I just want to be clear on that. For the first two levels, more in a sort of contemporary type of iteration on that sort of historic theme. At the facades above, it's a brick facade with Juliet balconies. The fenestration will be aluminum windows painted black, as in a lot of the other buildings in the neighborhood, with fixed transoms above, in swinging doors, and Juliet balconies with railings that reflect the sort of wrought iron historic sort of flavor of the other Juliet balconies and things of that nature within the district. The top of the building will have a precast cornice, not decorative. Again, all of the elements here are not decorative. They are modern or contemporary interpretations of those historic elements. And then you have the sixth floor, what could be called a penthouse or mezzanine, although it doesn't technically qualify as a mezzanine. It's the sixth floor. That facade is set back considerably from the front of the building, at about 20 feet, and at the rear at about 10 feet. So that's the front facade.
Does anybody want to ask, anybody on the committee want to ask questions about that part? Thanks for pausing, Gary.
Yeah, sure.
You can see if anybody has, on the
Mhm.
committee has questions.
Yep, absolutely.
Or we have non-committee board member here also.
Let's see, Mark has
Anybody?
questions. Jay's got a question.
Yeah, I have a question. The
Sure,
top
so-
floor, you're gonna show us a section, right? The top floor is
Yes.
back.
Yes, it is.
So
Considerably.
all right, Mark?
But you're adding 2 floors, correct?
Correct. So the fourth floor, as you see here, what's labeled as the fourth floor, is a new level, and that will be full, matching the front facade all the way up, and that is a zoning required. Zone. The building is technically. I'm following the zoning guidelines. Current zoning guidelines, where the street wall is required to be 55 feet to 65 feet, and the top of the building at 75 feet. I may have that wrong. It may be a little less, but yes, that is correct. So we're adding a full floor at the facade of the building, at the property line, at the street line, and then the top floor, which is the 5th floor, is set back at about 22 feet, I think 20 feet or 22 feet, something like that.
So you're counting this as a ground floor plus 3 existing rather than a 4-story addition, 4-story building as a existing condition. Is that, do we have that right?
No, I mean, it is a 4-story building, and it's now going to be a 6-story building.
So just you're counting from you're counting
Basement.
your, yeah, right. Okay.
Correct.
So if I could go next, Michele.
Sure.
Thanks. So a couple of clarifying questions, which will come back in my comments, I suspect. One is, I believe I'm not sure I heard you correctly. So the facade facing on the first, the ground and what used to be the ground and parlor floor. It doesn't look like that anymore. You said limestone or something else. Is it cast stone?
Yes, cast stone. That's correct. Yes.
So which will it be? Because I might feel differently about it depending on which it is.
I'm not sure as
We're
of yet.
proposing cast stone
Yes,
that has a color and texture of limestone.
of limestone. Correct.
Okay, so we'll come back to that when it's time for comments. That's the
Also,
clarifying.
it might help if we just finish the presentation instead, because some
And
of
by
these
me.
things may, become clearer.
Okay, I'm glad to wait.
All right, but, Jay, you want to ask your question though? I think. We can't hear you, Jay. Try again.
I
Okay,
can wait if you think it makes sense to complete the whole thing
Yes,
and then
Okay.
we'll go back part by part. That's fine.
yes,
okay,
thank you.
all right. So Gary, you want to continue? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Mary, if you just go back to the 2 stories. Okay. So, yeah. So again, the first 2 stories, limestone facade.
Cast stone, Gary.
Sorry, cast stone. Sorry, yeah, cast stone facade with some simplified architectural detailing. Not as heavy as the adjacent building. Obviously, the blocks and detailing of the adjacent building are more decorative and more substantial. And then again, as I mentioned, the railings for the balconies are a metal railing, kind of a detail that you'll see further in the presentation that comes somewhat from the neighborhood or at least reflects the character of the railings on similar balconies in the neighborhood. The rest of the facade is just a brick facade with no sills or stone lintels. Again, more of a clean, contemporary version of a typical apartment building per se. All right, Mary. This is the back of the building. So again, the back facade of the building gets removed. So the back facade of the building gets removed, and a new facade put on the building with the extension. Again, same thing. So we are 5 stories, full facade, and then the 6-story sets back approximately 10 feet. The extension does not extend beyond the existing adjacent buildings, nor does it block the existing lot line windows that you'll see in the next slide on that adjacent building.
So you can see the two, that it's the, you know, the 2 apartment buildings. We're looking to the west. No, we're looking to the east, and then we're looking to the west.
Correct. So this is a site plan showing you what is being removed. So that dotted line in the rear over there is the basement level or ground floor level sunroom that's being removed. And we are proposing approximately 14-foot rear addition. Again, well back from the rear of both of the adjacent buildings. And then as you can see, the setback at the rear of the building is 7.5 feet. Sorry, I said 10 before. So it's 7.5 feet in the rear is the setback, and 27 feet at the front. So this is a section of the building. The grayed out area is the existing building, and the rest of it is the proposed structure. So you can see there are very shallow 22-inch Juliet balconies at the front of the building, and at the rear we're proposing 5-foot balconies. These are the floor plans. So this is a 2-family residence. Okay, it's not a multi-family building. It's a 2-family structure. The owner of the property intends to live in the lower unit, and the upper unit will be for sale. So again, you can see the upper unit, the sort of penthouse structure setback, rear setback, the balconies at the rear and the front.
And you have an elevator in there, correct?
That is correct. Well, we are required by building code to provide an elevator because we're above 5 stories.
There's the elevator bulkhead.
Correct. And then these are sort of the finished material. So as you can see, when I spoke about balconies, you can see this kind of black metal balcony. That's sort of what we are thinking of doing here. As far as the cast stone sort of architectural elements at the facade, you can see the cast stone trim. Something similar to that on a very simplified, contemporary appearance. The brick, a little darker than a red, but a red brick with some texture. And you'll see the water table and what's limestone. So it's not cast stone, this is limestone. This is the adjacent building on the left of our property. So our intent is to do this similar, a similar theme. So there'll be a water table of a darker granite material, and then a cast stone facade and elements that will match a limestone in color and texture.
So this, as Gary pointed out, this is not a building meant to imitate anything on the in the district, but it respects the elements of the district, and everything you see on the building are elements that you would see in the district. So you would see multi-pane windows, you would see balconies, you would see red brick, a lot of red brick. You also even see the, not as common, but you see the banked center windows that are being proposed here in buildings of a similar size and width. And you do see cast stone. It tended to be used from the 1920s and later, but it is something that you do see used in the district. And that is our presentation. Thank you for hearing us out.
Jay, you had a question.
Yeah, actually, a couple. Can you, I think just an observation, notwithstanding the fact that we are a preservation committee, obviously, there's not 1 inch of this building that warrants any kind of preservation, so that's not the issue. So we're strictly dealing with the appropriateness of the brand new design. Can you put up on the screen I think it was the original or one of the original photographs showing the existing building and the good portion of the 2 adjacent buildings?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Sure, that's the first, I think the first slide, Mary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I basically am fine with the design. I'm a little more than ambivalent about the multi-paned windows.
I agree. No,
And, you know, I understand that this building will, to some substantial degree, stand on its own. And certainly doesn't have to replicate the designs of the adjacent buildings, which are obviously of a different era and in different condition. But I think, I don't know how to say this technically, but I think the multi-pane windows as you've proposed them are a little too much. I think multi-pane windows, something that's a little more reflective of the adjacent buildings, maybe something a little more reflective of the building to the west, or as you're facing it to the left, would be more appropriate. I think that that proliferation of multi-pane, small multi-pane windows just crosses the line as far as an industrial look is concerned. And I think without changing your concept significantly, you could do more to reduce the multiness, if that's such a word, of the window designs. I just think it's a little too much. Considering the site and the height of the adjacent buildings, I don't have a problem increasing the height of the building. I think the setbacks are laudable on the top floor. I think the balconies, the proposed balconies are an interesting design. And frankly, I think the balconies are more in context with the surrounding buildings and the district, especially in the juxtaposition to the windows. So that would be my only strong suggestion. I'm not sure yet whether I consider it an objection, but I really think that that those multi-pane windows cross the line of appropriateness. Otherwise, and by the way, I don't have the same feelings about them on the rear facade for obvious reasons. It's not, visible from a public way, and we have in the past approved several rear additions and rear facade restorations with multi-pane windows. But I just feel pretty strongly that you could do better with multi-pane windows that are more in context with
Can you show those
the
again?
location.
Can you show that facade again with the windows? The new design?
You're talking about on every level, Jay?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, on the front facade, yeah, I would like, I think multi-pane windows are fine. Maybe something that's more vertical in concept on the windows than horizontal. It just seems a little jarring to me with all this stacking of these small multi-pane windows. It just, I'm fine with industrial looking buildings, but it's a little jarring to me at this location and located between those two traditional apartment buildings.
So Mary, can I, thank you,
Yeah, would you
Jay.
please respond to that, Gary?
Sure. So, the cues were taken from some of the adjacent buildings in the neighborhood. Specifically, the next building west of the large apartment building. And again, we originally envisioned this as more of a very modern type of building. Lamross felt that was a little too much. So we pulled back from that a bit to kind of introduce some of the more traditional elements, although on as I said, and I'll keep saying, a more contemporary approach to those elements. As far as the multi-pane windows, Mary, I don't know, do we have those photographs in this of that building just west of the larger building?
Gary, it's one of the no style.
One of the no stop.
Yeah.
No, that's not it.
No,
That's
but
not it. No, we don't.
we
Okay.
don't. But but they do exist in the building, in the
In the
district.
district, correct. As far as the scale of the fenestration is concerned, that they are approximately the same size as the larger openings that you see on the third floor of the adjacent building. But Jay, listen, point taken. It's something that the owner of the building kind of felt strongly about. I think I kind of feel a bit strongly about it too. Thinking of this as more of a townhouse than an apartment building, although, being a 6-story building, it's really not a townhouse, although it is a 2-family residence. But point taken, Jay.
Yeah, and I anxious to see what my colleagues on the committee.
I'd like to say
See if
something.
I'm an
No, wait.
outlier.
Wait a minute, Peter. I think Mark's been waiting. Mark, Ira, and Madge.
Okay, in any order is fine, but thank you for that. So your last point is one that I wanted to pick up on, because I sort of view this as the end of this building being a townhouse and the beginning of its life as an apartment building. I have no objection to, and I suppose we ought to include in our resolution our view on it, because a building that's being this radically altered in an historic district, we should include a word as to why it's okay to do that. And here, because it's a no-style building with no actual architectural features being removed, I have no objection to a fairly significant reinvention of this building, both in height and in materials and in fenestration. With that said, I do view this as as more of an apartment building than a townhouse anymore. And that gives me leave to, it's funny because I actually think that the divided light windows are more appropriate to this use than they would be to a townhouse. So I think that part, I may disagree with my colleague Jay on that. And it's because I view this as with those kinds of windows and with that character of it being more of an apartment building than a townhouse, that I can see my way clear to holding my nose and saying, okay, with respect to the Juliet balconies, which my colleagues are already tired of me talking about as being inappropriate to this district. In apartment buildings, we do see them from time to time. You could sort of kind of call the enclosures on the windows to the building to the west Juliet balconies, although I would wager that no one in their right mind would actually step out onto it. So for those reasons, I find those are acceptable as a combination. I am very worried about the use of cast stone rather than real limestone in the surrounds for the basement and, well, I'm not going to call it the parlor floor anymore, the first two floors on the front facade, because I think that they will weather differently and they will appear differently than the detail, especially on the building to the west, which this is trying to emulate or at least align with, and a little bit to the building on the east. And there are other buildings down the block. This isn't the only building on this block that kind of made the jump from townhouse to apartment building. So I think that's also a precedent that's worth including in your presentation, not just as no style buildings, but as basis for why this is okay. On the rear facade, the fenestration is something that's consistent with the kinds of fenestration that we've routinely approved, including the masonry surrounds and so forth. Since I have another pet peeve of those greenhouses that pretend to be temporary structures that never ever go away, the removal of the greenhouse in favor of an actual extension that goes to the 30-foot setback line is an improvement in my view. Overall, I view these as improvements. I strongly recommend that you reconsider the cast stone, and I'm glad to hear that it doesn't block the lot line windows. With that, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
May I just
Ira?
answer? May I just
Of
answer
course, I'm
that?
sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
Just for a sec. Yeah, we talked about limestone, and you know, in the end, it's not such a big. Wasn't really a cost thing. It was the way this building is with the large windows and a fairly small amount of cast stone. It was a better fit for the construction of the building. And I do want to say, I'm going to go quickly. These are all cast stone, and they kind of go pretty well, you know, with the district. I understand they're not next to a limestone, but they don't really stand out as being so radically different. Those are my points.
All right. Ira, you wanted to ask a question, but you're muted. And it's still winter where you live.
It's
Michele,
going
no
to be
offense.
winter until it gets to fall. Okay, one is I'd like to thank Mary for noting that the cost difference between limestone and cast stone is negligible, if at all. I know, and sometimes limestone is actually cheaper for some reason. But tactilely, it is very, very different. And the quality of the corners, the quality of the details are far more appropriate at grade. If you're going to tell me you were doing cast stone at the 5th floor, the 6th floor, the difference is not that visible. But right here, it's at ground. It's what you feel, it's what you touch. So I would go for the limestone, particularly since there doesn't seem to be any cost impact. And with that said, I'm going to give you something I like. Actually, I like the windows, except for the first floor windows. And I don't know what that funny thing is between the French door, above the French doors. I'm unclear what that little ornament is that keeps showing up.
On the ground floor.
Mary, would you mind just going to the next slide, which is the block?
Sorry? It's yeah, I don't know what that.
Light and intercom.
No. On each floor? I can't point to it
Oh,
here.
You're
Oh, it's
talking
a
about
little
the-
plaque.
No, in the
It's a
center of
plaque.
the building directly
There's a
over.
vertical mullion there.
Yeah, I don't understand what that is and why that's there.
There's a horizontal, you're talking about in the center
Yes.
transom
Yeah,
window
it
above
just
the door
seems-
is a horizontal mullion.
I mean, it seems to be relatively gratuitous, but I'm just asking about it. The thing that bothers me though, with the two windows on the first floor, because we've seen a bunch of non-historic window types showing up on townhouses lately, awnings, hoppers, tilt turns, that have no precedence whatsoever in historical buildings. And so I'd like to see that as a casement as the other windows are. I also find the fact that you have the transom here makes these windows rather squat and disproportional to the rest of the building. So I don't, I know you're trying to maybe match the mullion, the horizontal mullion over the door, but I don't think that's necessary. I think the proportions of the window just look odd with the transom. So that was my other comment. The mullions, the grids I like, I'm fine with that. I would concur with Mark and disagree with Jay on that. So those are my comments.
Thank you.
And then one other question. I don't know the exact width of the building, but the building's narrow enough to only require one light.
I'm sorry?
The width of the building, it looks marginal as to whether it requires one or two lights under the code. Just a
Yeah,
question.
the building is, so the lot's 16 feet wide.
How long? 16?
16, yep.
Oh yeah, that's one light. Oh boy, poor little building. Okay, it really deserves better treatment than it's had. So those were my comments.
Thank you, Madge. I'm sorry. I didn't call on you before, Madge.
Oh,
you
no,
keep
I'm quite
Madge
all
first.
right. Mark said most of what I wanted to say. At the idea of this cast concrete base, I agree, first of all, that it's going to age very differently, and it should be really respecting the buildings on either side rather than offering up some sort of conflicting problems that could happen either at the beginning or down the line. So I'd like to see that real stone also,
So you're recommending limestone also?
not cast concrete to do
Not
line.
cast. Thank you, Madge. Peter?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Do you have any images of the windows of the apartment building to the west?
Yeah, we saw that.
That was significantly altered back in 2005.
Oh, this one here, yeah.
Mm.
Okay. It seems to me there's a lintel at the top of the second floor on the base of the third floor to the building on the west, and also one on the east. Can you show that facade, your facade again? Because
Oh, yeah. They're the same architect, by the way.
yeah, it would be good if you showed it in that drawing. I assume that carries across. Is that right?
The
lintel on the building to the apartment building to the west.
Oh, I think it's just, I think it's just in the center. I'm going to switch back quickly, sorry.
Yeah, but
It's just-
I know, but if you show the new facade in this,
Oh,
I think you
yeah,
would.
more contact,
See
a contact
what
elevation.
I'm talking about. That would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you show us the rear facade again? The new rear facade. That's the one on the, is that the rear facade?
Yes,
Yeah, it's similar.
Yes, yes, the rear facade is very similar to the front facade, only it's all brick with traditional, cast stone. Maybe it's limestone, but stone lintels and sills. Yes.
And let me see the front facade again. So it's very much the same.
The front facade is very much the same. That is correct, with the exception of the ground floor, and the ground floor and the second level,
All right.
first floor.
I also agree with Jay about the small windows. I think it's a little bit overkill. I mean, I generally think the facade is well proportioned. And I don't have any problem with the material and so forth, but the tiny panes, I think, is a little over the top. I know there are other buildings in the neighborhood, but I think this is just somewhat overdoing it. And I would suggest reducing it somewhat. Maybe not having so many panes per window. It looks like those panes are very small. That's basically my comment.
Thank you, Peter. Klari?
So I've heard kind of differing views on the front windows, which are like the back windows, but there's no criticism of them, I think.
having trouble hearing, Klari.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me better? I'm not mute. Can you hear me better?
Now, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we've heard some criticisms from a couple people as to the number of panes on the windows, particularly on the front. I'm not sure I've heard much complaint about the back. The strongest, if not unanimity, the most frequently made comment among our colleagues here is concern about cast stone versus limestone for various reasons on the first two floors. I share that comment more strongly than any of the other comments. I'm not sure I share any of the other comments, but because I'm almost the last person to speak other than if people from the community do. What I would suggest we consider is a resolution that approves, that recommends strongly limestone, not cast stone, on the first two floors of the front, and that finds this minimally appropriate to the historic district. That's where I would end up.
Okay, we do have Susan with her hand raised. Thank you,
I didn't
Klari.
realize Susan was yet to come.
Okay, Susan.
I just want a clarification. The windows, when you take the building up, the two extra floors, is that going to block any windows on the adjacent buildings?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all. No, there are no windows on the front portion of the lot line. There are at the rear of the building. Mary, if you would go another 2 slides, I think it is. No, right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's
So
that?
yes, so you can see that there are no they're on the building to our, if we're looking at the front of the building to our right, there are windows well above at the, I want to say the 8th, 9th floor or 7th, 8th, and 9th floors. These windows that you see on the right-hand image are the building on the left, and our building, our addition, will not impact those windows. We are approximately 2 to 3 feet, if I'm not mistaken, easily 2 to 3 feet from those windows.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, Susan, you look a little perplexed, and I'm the same.
Because when I looked at it on Google Earth. Obviously, I'm not Superman. I can't, jump down on top of the building. But I looked on Google Earth, and it did look like it was going to block some windows, and I was very concerned about that. So I believe you, but it just so you're saying it's good. Your addition will only go. It will still be 2 to 3 feet below those windows.
Not below, but
not
but
below.
shy of them.
Correct. That is correct.
I'm sorry, Mark. What did you say?
The addition goes to like here.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't, it goes into the extension of the rear facade, as I read the plans, only goes another 7 or 10 feet from the existing facade, which puts it, now I think you'll probably be able to hand a pie from the lot line window you see here through the window when you build the new windows out, but they won't actually cover them. That's what I read.
But that's the rear yard addition. What about the additional on top of the building?
Well, on top of the building, there's a courtyard, and there are no windows at the front. There are no windows on the lot lines at the front of the buildings.
Okay, so there will be no windows blocked.
No.
Excellent. Okay. I share the concerns about limestone versus cast concrete. And I have to say, I think the windows in the front are a bit, it seems to me like I agree with Ira, this poor little building, it's a lot of windows to stuff in there.
It's true.
I'm also, I agree that the building, I used to do historic preservation survey work, and the term we would use for this building would be not no style, would be trashed. This building has been pretty well trashed, architecturally speaking, but still, I'm a little bit upset at the notion that you could take a little tiny sliver of a lot like this and then put 2 floors on top of it, and basically, as Mark said, turn it into an apartment building. And I'm not pleased about that, the density. So I think I'm going to wind up abstaining on this for those reasons. It's a little bit uncomfortable for me that this is all being done. I guess the owner has the right to do it, but it's a bit much for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Michelle, there were a couple of questions in the Q&A, and one of them, or a couple of them, were by Mr. Gleicher, or Gleicher, I don't know how to pronounce, excuse me, who also has his hand up. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Is there anybody else from the committee or non-committee board members who want to say anything? All right, thanks, Mark. We can hear from.
Mr. Gleicher, you should be able to unmute. Looks like you are. Did I lose him?
He's been promoted, Mark. He's rejoining.
Oh, good for you. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me? This is Paul Gleicher.
Hi, we can hear and see you, sir.
Great. Okay. Well, first of all, I live on this block. My wife and I, we did a renovation many years ago. And I have to say, living on this block, 229 has been nothing but an eyesore. So I'm very encouraged that this building is proposed to be renovated. So I'm very happy about that. I did have a couple of questions about the front facade from an aesthetic standpoint. So kind of my first question is, are the windows proposed to be recessed, or are they more modernly interpreted that they're right flush with the front facade?
No, they're intended to be slightly recessed, so there is a little bit of a shadow line and a little bit of recess. Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. I mean, Gary, do you have a sense, like, are they kind of deeply recessed, or you're thinking just, you know,
no,
3 or 4 inches?
3 to 4 inches. The return of you know, width of brick and the either cast stone or the cast stone. Yeah, correct.
Well, to put my 2 cents in, I think it would be nicer if they could be recessed further, but that's really for you guys to decide. I'm trying to understand, are there pilasters running up either side of the facade? It looks like there's kind of continuous vertical lines there.
Yes, so the 2 side portions that you see there, the 2 side piers, let's call them, will have a little bit of definition. The brickwork will be some horizontal banding that will be slightly recessed so that this isn't just a flat brick facade.
Are you able to put your cursor over those? I just want to, or is that not?
Do you think it'll show up? No, it doesn't really.
Well, just put the cursor where.
Mary, if you would just zoom in a bit, it'd be zoom in a bit
on the front
don't
facade.
Have that capability anymore.
No? Okay.
Or even the 2 stories that you showed, the detail on the other drawing is sufficient. for
Sure.
that.
So I mean, I could
Yeah.
probably answer your question graphically. So two things. One is the connection between the two adjacent buildings is a recessed connection.
Yeah,
Maintaining the same recessed connection of the existing building. And that was something that LPC kind of felt strongly about, and we kind of concurred after discussions. So there is a bit of a recess there on the two sides, as you can see in the limestone, and then also at the brickwork. And then as you go up the building, so if you were to visually look at the horizontal blocking of the cast stone, there is the same horizontal banding along the two sides of the building, the sort of piers of the building. And those will have some definition, being brickwork that will be recessed every, whatever it is, let's say 6 courses of brick kind of thing. So that it does visually continue the horizontal sort of banding at the 2 lower levels.
all right, and forgive me, just a couple of other questions. I see you have some decorative elements, like the square decorative elements.
Yep.
What are those?
Just
Terracotta or what?
No, well, there's no terracotta on this building. It's cast stone, just cast stone medallions to kind of, again, break up the verticality of the building and introduce, some sort of a bit of a break to a monolithic facade. Of the
Okay.
building.
The cornice at the 5th floor, that is a projecting cornice? As
It
opposed to-
is.
Okay.
Slightly projected. Again, a modern, contemporary, I don't want to say modern, but contemporary iteration of a traditional cornice. So no decorative elements on it. But yes, it will project. I'm going to throw out a number. I'm not exactly sure exactly how much it's going to project at this point in time, but probably no more than a foot, maybe 18 inches at the most.
Well, I wouldn't object if it went further, if it projected further, but, and I just have one last question, Gary. Right at the front door, you have a side light.
Yep.
And a transom as well. I'm just wondering, like at the sidewalk, the side light, the bottom of the side light is kind of at a unusual relation to the bottom of the front door. Is that just a graphic thing?
That's just a graphic thing. Yeah, that's just a graphic thing. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I am in favor of the project. It's a vast improvement to what is there now. So I'll throw that out there. The apartment building versus single family, 2-family, I do think that is a legitimate concern, but it's the owner's prerogative. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gleischer. Jay,
Thank
did you
you.
want to say something before we call on Lisa Sharkey?
Oh,
Because your hand is up.
oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so then. we'll
Michele,
call
I
on-
also promoted Kara Kelly, who had questions in the Q&A. So after Lisa, perhaps her.
Okay, sure. Lisa Sharkey? And you can unmute yourself, I think. Thank you,
All right.
Paul Gleischer.
Thank you.
We can't hear you, Lisa, if you're talking.
Yeah, you do need to unmute yourself, Lisa. You should be able to.
That is no.
Michele, maybe go to Kara Kelly while Lisa tries to work herself out.
Sure, sure. I don't see this. I don't see.
Kara Kelly, if
Oh, I
you want
see
to unmute.
I'm here. Hey, thank you. Good evening. Not really related to preservation, but I feel like if CB7 doesn't ask, who will? How long will the construction take? And it seems pretty dramatic. What steps are going to be taken to abate the noise, the vibrations, the pollution? Seems like a big project.
So the time frame for a project like this is somewhere between 12 to 18 months. As far as noise, vibration, that kind of thing, there are no intention of driving piles here. It's a very small building. Foundation work is minimal at best. And other than that, the fact that, we are a relatively small construction site hemmed in by the two adjacent apartment buildings, I don't believe that there is much of a concern on that front.
Okay. Just one follow-up. So the extension in the back, will there be excavation like to the cellar level to
No.
create a foundation?
No, actually, no, we do not intend to excavate there. We intend to do shallow foundation. Technically, the intent most likely will be what's called helical piles, which are not driven into the ground, but screwed into the ground with very small equipment machinery.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Lisa. I mean, not Lisa, Kara, I'm sorry. Did
No
Lisa,
problem.
is Lisa able to unmute herself? Maybe she left? I think we'll, if she can't unmute herself, I think we should close it. Do we see her? Mark, was she able to unmute herself?
No, I did see at one point that she got her camera to work, but I'm clicking on ask to unmute one time.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yay.
yes. Okay, hi, Lisa Sharkey.
Much. Hi, so I'm married to Paul. He's an amazing architect, my husband, and we live and own the townhouse that is one building west of the building that's adjacent to the 16-footer that we actually almost bought years ago. I just want to echo what Paul said, like that building has been the ugliest eyesore on our block for forever. And we are the building that is a multi-pane windowed building that is just beautiful. And I have no objection whatsoever. My only concern, honestly, has nothing to do with the architecture. It has to do with the rodent issue on our block. And we just want to make sure that proper extermination is taken into control when this demolition and everything is happening, because unfortunately, we have had a really awful rat situation on our block, and any construction of this sort is just going to stir up these populations. And we have spent thousands of dollars to try to mitigate this. And I just want to make sure that, if possible, because I just think I wouldn't be the only one that wouldn't want even more rats running around here. So other than that, I think the design is beautiful, and I really appreciate the care and time that you've all taken to create such a lovely design.
Thank you, Lisa Sharkey. So we're going to close the discussion with the public and the non-committee board members and talk about a resolution. I think we should start at the point that Klari proposed.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Russ, my concern about the rodents, or is that just no one's
Yeah, I really kind of fluffed over that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Sure, listen, I'm more than happy to comment.
You don't live on the block,
Lisa.
so I guess it doesn't matter to you, but to us.
No,
it's
no,
really-
absolutely not. Anytime there's any movement of one even stone in this city, it brings out the best of the rodent and other crud population.
Just as an example, we caught and exterminated 41 rats a couple of summers ago in our backyard, 2 buildings away, 41 rats. So just letting you know that we don't want more of them. And if the people who are doing this renovation can bring in top exterminators and make sure that they trap this situation before it gets out of control, that would be really helpful.
Okay, Gary, you said you wanted to.
Well, yeah, so look, I again, you're we're not demolishing this building entirely. Okay, so that's the first thing that I'm going to say, Lisa.
I understand. I'm married to an architect. I know you're demolishing it,
Okay,
but you're.
great. Okay, yeah. So, you know, our excavation, the excavation that we're doing at this site is minimal. We're not excavating at the rear. As I said, the intent is to use helical piles. It'll be a mat foundation at the rear of the property. At the front of the property, we are doing some demolition of the front foundation in order to accommodate a new foundation to support the new facade of the building. And yes, we will certainly take into account, you know, precautionary measures, as well as the required seismic portions of what we're required to do in a historic district and all the rest of it. So certainly we're sensitive to the neighborhood, to the adjacent buildings and the rest of the buildings. And to speak in terms of, I'm assuming that you are the building right after the apartment building to the west of us, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yep, we own, it's a single
Okay.
family that we
Right.
own, the eco townhouse.
So I can say to you that the original iteration of our building was more in line with what you guys did there. Windows are a nod to your building. Color wise, just appearance wise, all of that. And certainly we will be very cognizant of the impact that our construction will have on the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now, notwithstanding what you all have put me through, and I understand, Lisa, don't get me wrong. Every time a rock is moved in this town, 10 rats show up. Very upset. But we will close the discussion on this matter and start, and may I suggest from, where is Klari, from Clary's point? You want to repeat what you said earlier, Klari?
Mary,
I will
maybe you
try,
can
see
take.
if I can do it the same way. What I was suggesting, and it hasn't changed based upon all of the other people who've spoken from the community, is that we have a resolution to approve with a strong recommendation that the stonework at the first two floors be limestone rather than cast stone. I much prefer limestone, but I don't think I would disapprove solely for that reason. I know that recommendations we make are just that and have, they don't go anywhere unless the applicant takes our recommendation seriously, but in any event, that's how I would do that. And then, so in characterizing the degree of appropriateness based upon the fact that this building now is a piece of crap.
We're losing you.
Yeah, we're losing what you said.
I would include a characterization of the proposed changes as minimal.
Minimally?
And Paige is back with us, I said.
Anybody have anything to say about the reduction of the number of multi-pane windows on the front facade?
Well, I know Peter and I have expressed.
We don't like them.
Yeah, but I don't know what the sense of the other members of the committee is. I mean, if I were voting on the resolution, I would prefer not to make it a conditional on a reduction in the number and a reduction in the number and an increase of the size of the multi-pane windows, but I don't know how the rest of you feel about including that in a resolution. I would, and if the majority doesn't, then I'll have to decide how I'm going to vote.
So can we have a sense of the committee on that? It's a recommendation, and that's probably the best we can do, Jay. Anybody else feel strongly about reducing the number of multi-pane windows on the front facade?
Well, not the windows themselves.
Right.
Of increasing the size of the panes, if that's I know that's not a technical way to say it, but.
So can I jump in on that?
Sure.
I have no objection to the windows as presented, but I would be comfortable with the resolution that said with a recommendation to revisit the degree of multi-light fenestration on the front facade. That tees up the issue for LPC commissioners and staff and doesn't do violence to the presentation as made, in my view. I don't know if that's a good compromise.
I'm happy to go along with Mark's.
Yeah, I would be happy with that as well.
I don't want the issue to submarine
Right.
the overall resolution. So I'll take it.
Verb, I got to do the resolution. You were saying reconsider or revisit? What was?
Revisit.
language?
Revisit.
Revisit?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, and I'm not supposed to speak, but why is this minimally appropriate?
Well, we're
Yeah,
gonna get to that next.
I actually
Can I-
agree with
I just want to
Mary.
go. Can I go back to the windows for a second?
Sure.
The building's only 16 feet wide. If we reduce the number of vertical mullions or the scale of anything here, it's going to look like a modernist building. It's the grid that gives it any scale whatsoever.
Okay,
That's what makes horse racing, Ira.
right, right.
Sorry?
And minimally appropriate is why, Klari?
Well, because there's, it's
We're
a
taking this
fill-in
from a
of something.
no-style building to
It's a
something
fill-in
that,
in a 16, in my view, anyway, it's a fill-in in a 16-foot wide space, not like anything that has been there historically. It has a lot of differences. I mean, I know it intends to pay homage to elements, decorative elements around the neighborhood and its immediate neighbors, and also the townhouse that Fleischer and Sharkey both own and renovate their windows. So it's not as if it doesn't have some references to other buildings in the neighborhood, but itself is something we've maybe not never seen before, but it stands on its own as something that would be a modern infill in the neighborhood. And that's why I would call it minimally appropriate. Others no different.
anybody else have anything to say about that? Madge?
Yeah, I don't think it's minimally. I don't think the minimally is necessary there at all because it's taking something that's so awful and making it so much better. So why are we saying minimally?
That's true.
And we can't compare it to buildings that are much older because it's not saying we want to be we kind of want to be an older building, but we're putting new things on it.
Larry, are you okay if we just leave it as appropriate without
Appropriate.
characterizing the level of appropriateness?
Wouldn't be my choice. I'd go for moderately, but hey, if nobody else wants to go for moderate or never mind minimal, then
I think just
okay.
appropriate is
Sure.
fine.
Okay.
I agree with Jay.
Okay.
Yes.
So the resolution is to recommend approval with a recommendation to consider limestone on the front facade, 2 stories, and to revisit the
Front facade.
front
fenestration.
facade windows on the front facade.
Multiple panes,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we're okay with the rear facade
And
and
the
So let's-
addition.
yeah,
Let's
and let's,
vote.
You've
All right,
got
let's vote on
Paige
that.
has her- Excuse me, Michelle, you got Paige with her hand up.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Paige, where are you? Oh, I see.
Here.
Okay.
I came late to the party. I'm only commenting on the facade. It looks fine. And then I sat here thinking about it. And I'm not sure if it's meant to be a mini apartment building or an addition to an addition to an addition for a townhouse. The scale to me seems a bit peculiar, and I understand why. It's an infill piece. But there, normally you have a base and then a shaft and a cornice on the top. And this seems to be missing some details that I would have expected the architect might include. As a result, it looks like something that we have on 88th Street, Peter, on the Central Park West to Columbus block of one of those 1950s small apartment buildings. The one that on our street is wide, not tall. So I don't know enough about it. I respect that you guys have chewed on this considerably. I won't be voting. I will abstain because I'm not comfortable with the knowledge I have to make cogent comments. Thank you.
Right, and the dated LPC for this application, sorry.
We're looking for, we're still awaiting a DOB objection sheet that's clean for zoning. So we're looking at June, and right now I can't give you the date, but it's not going to be May.
Okay.
All right, it'll be sometime in June. All right, so let us take a vote on the resolution as presented by the committee. I'll call your name and you tell me how you're going to vote. Mark?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Peter?
Yes.
Madge?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Klari? Yes.
Yes.
Susan?
Abstain.
And Paige?
Abstain.
All right, so the resolution passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 0 to 2 to 0.
We need to
What
make
about-
Iris vote.
And
Non-committee, I'm sorry,
It's okay. It's okay.
non-committee board members. Ira?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So that, there's no other non-committee board members here. So 1 to 0 to 0 to 0. Thank you very much. And we will, we appreciate you listening to all our questions and those of the community. Glad the people on the block got involved. And we look forward to the change in this structure.
We really appreciate this conversation, and we'll take to heart everything that you've said. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
you.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Thank
you.
you, Dan.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks.
Welcome. All right, our next application is 330 West 72nd Street, apartment 7B. It is application for a certificate of appropriateness for window replacements. So we're talking about well, you'll tell us, Ms. Hoffman.
Michelle, before Barbara starts, I want to say that I am a resident and owner in this same building. And although I believe I am not disqualified from voting tonight in terms of conflict, I intend not to vote. I may participate in the discussion, but I don't intend to vote. Hi,
All right,
Barbara.
thank you. So I'll have you,
Michelle?
you're abstaining for cause.
No.
Well, I don't think I'm disqualified, so I'm not quite
She's
sure whether
not.
I ought to abstain or do it that, but
Okay.
anyway.
All right, but thank you for
If
saying
I
that.
may, Klari, your appropriate response would be to declare yourself ineligible
Yeah.
because otherwise your abstention counts as a no.
I understand that. I thought about that.
Okay, okay. So
Can I
as
just-
you wish.
And
Just
Susan,
a minute to say, Klari, well done, and I'm really delighted that you did that. Just not because of you, but just so often we don't do that kind of thing. So thank you very much for doing that.
and this is from the president of the bylaws committee.
Okay, not president, chair of the bylaws task force. On behalf of the bylaws task
No, I
force,
think.
duly appreciative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Hoffman, what do you have to show us, tell us?
What I'm trying to do first is to see whether I can share my screen, because I had quite a set of slides and presentation, which I think is important.
Can you do it? You should have the right to do it. I have it up if you need it. So just tell me what you need.
I'm trying to make myself bigger, and I don't get the share screen sort of thing here. I just like I'm a little square.
Is it not working?
I don't need to have my
I'll call it
stuff.
up and you can just tell me when to change the slides, okay?
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Give me 1 second because I want to make sure.
Can I just ask, did anybody see this site? I did. Did anybody see this site?
Yes.
Yeah,
Didn't see
I'm
it.
familiar with it, but I'm not voting.
okay. Klari, are there a lot of different windows on the facade of this building, or did I
I'm sure
just?
Barbara will tell you.
I have quite a presentation, which I think makes it
Yeah,
quite
let's,
evident what the
Let's,
story is,
Mark,
and I'd like to be able to present it if I can.
yeah, you have a couple of minutes to do that. Why not?
Okay, this is not the right presentation that I had. So now I can, if you allow me to share my screen.
That's the one that you sent us.
Right. That's the most recent one that we got today.
No, I was told that one wasn't going to be used, and I have, and you have the one I sent before, which I have now a typed formal presentation, which is the one I submitted to you. The problem
whatever it
is
is, can we get it up on the screen?
Yeah. I will be able to share screen if you let me share screen. I have it right here. Can you see my screen?
No.
Here?
No, I have the other one up if you want me. Here, I'll bring up the one that you sent previously.
I sent one previous to the one that was just there that you had, which is the one I submitted to the committee.
To the office. All right.
To the office, yes.
That's the prior one.
That's the prior one.
That's not me. That's a 71st Street location. That's not me. It's not my submission. I'm viewing Mark Diller's screen. If you allow me to share this screen, my screen, I have it here. And
Mark, you keep putting up the last one. And you're muted.
Okay. You have the ability under Zoom to share your screen. If it's
of course
not working,
I know, but I have to be allowed to do that. And
no, you've been allowed to do it.
Got it.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you just put the other one and I'll use the photos because that's not working, and not the handwritten note on it because it's not working for me. I'm not able to.
So is this the one you wanted?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Maybe I figured out this where it says more.
Ma'am, could you just take a look at the screen and tell me if that's what you wanted us to put up?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
so
let's do this. Mark, you're going to be in control of the screen, please.
as best I can.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. This is actually the what was submitted to the Landmarks Commission, and it's the general project description.
Okay.
So I think I can just talk to that right now, and then we can move on to
No, it's okay. You can tell us how many windows we're talking about, what you want to do.
Yeah,
all right.
If we can get to the visuals.
All right, stop right here. This is good. And I'll tell you exactly what I want to do. I've lived in this building for 50 years. I live in apartment 7B, which is just above, if you move up, right there.
Okay.
Interestingly, Klari Neuwelt lived in apartment 6B, which was just below me, with the divided windows that are not historic. And my presentation is, I want to give you a bit. This building was designed by Bloom and Bloom. They were well-known architects. I didn't know much about them before I was ordered to change my windows. I have now visited every one of their buildings in our district. There are numerous buildings that survive, They came from Paris and they started building in around 1910. There's a wonderful book by Andrew Dolkart that was written about the Blum and Blum throughout the city of New York. It was paid for by the Terracotta Association. So,
Okay, could you tell us what kind of windows you want to replace your 6 windows with?
yeah, I have currently, as you can see, double hung 1/1 windows. I want to replace these windows on the facade with the exact same windows that I have. Adjacent, I've lived in this building with these windows, which are the original wood windows, apparently, that were installed. They're almost 100 years old. I was told by my building in December, late November, that in order to pass local law 11 inspection, I would have to replace all of my windows, all 11 windows, including 6 facade windows. Because of constraints that were imposed on the local law certification process, the building made an application. I mean, essentially, I was forced to join a panorama package for the 3 other units on the facade that have to replace windows.
So are you saying there is there's no plan, no building plan for the windows?
I'm telling you that there is no master plan for this building. I will also tell you that the Landmarks Commission has determined that the historic window, based on a 1940 photograph, is the 3/1 divided light mullions that are in apartments 7A and 8A, which are also going to be replaced. These people have not been in residence for 50 years. 8A, I think, recently bought 4 or 5 years ago. They had these windows when they bought their apartments. Landmarks has determined, based on the 1940 tax map photo that I'm sure you're familiar with, that's used often as a basis for determining what are the historic windows, that the historic windows were this 3/1. As a result of that, 2 other units in the building were essentially forced to put in 3/1 windows.
So how are you, let's concentrate on your windows.
My window, well, let's concentrate.
We're going to concentrate on what you want to do with your windows.
Tell
My
us
window.
what you want to do.
Just tell us what you want to do.
I want to replace my windows that are there with exactly the same windows.
But not wood frames.
I would have replaced them with wood, but there wasn't time. So if you just let me finish, I applied.
We just want to get a sense to cut to the chase, what you want to replace your windows with.
Okay. To cut to the chase, if I can.
Please.
Which is what I was starting to say. Panorama, through my co-op, has gotten approval at the Landmarks Commission to replace my windows with identical windows as I'm asking to have replaced, with the exception that Panorama Windows has put in an application, which was approved by Landmarks, to have 3 divided light mullions at the top. So the only issue, and my co-op has approved my making this application, is for me to put in 1/1 double hung windows. And this becomes important. At the same time that I put in my application, Panorama put in its application. I put in an application based on no effect. The standard for an application of no effect is whether or not the proposed change has an effect on a significant architectural feature of the building, whether it affects adjacent properties or the characteristics of the district. I was denied the certificate of no effect simply on the basis of the fact that I did not have divided light mullions. That was the only difference between what I was proposing and what Panorama was proposing. The interesting thing is that I did further research. And in fact, in my presentation, which we can move the slides because you can see, I have the historic windows, et cetera. It's not just this. These are the windows that were proposed. These are the ones that the existing wood, and that was originally proposed by Panorama with this, which was approved. And then you can just move them through.
So Panorama got approval to change the windows, but you're not happy with the type of windows that Panorama wants to put in, and you want to put in effect, replicas of the current windows that you have in your apartment.
No, that's not accurate. I said exactly, I am accepting that. I would have preferred to have wood windows, yes, but I didn't have time. So I am happy with the Panorama windows. I am not happy with having bars on my windows, having had a view for the last 50 years, which is the most significant attribute to my apartment. And I might say that, and I have a whole slide presentation. If you would just go to the G, this is not what I submitted. This is my view currently. The north facade office window. This is my apartment on the interior.
Excuse me. I feel like I'm clueless about this. Can somebody else help me out?
This is.
I'm not sure.
This is your presentation. We didn't get it from anywhere else. So what slide do you want me to put up?
Just, these are the historic slides.
Okay.
These are the historic slides. If you go through now, please.
We're okay.
This is my application to landmarks. This is not my presentation to the community board. These are Blum versus Blum buildings. This is not my presentation to this is not what
I called up both of the presentations that were sent to our board, and you've now told us that neither of them is the correct one. So I'm at a loss. Can we make do with what we have here?
No, then just go back to the other one. And actually now because you're doing that.
No.
All right, I can go to start sharing screen if you let me share the screen.
And you've had the power to share your screen throughout, so I don't understand.
No, you are not letting me share the screen. It says, while other people are sharing my screen, I can't share my screen. So I'm not being allowed to share my screen.
When is your application going to be in front of LPC?
May 14th. Let me just make my point very clear.
Yes.
I've submitted all my materials and they should be there available on the record to what I submitted. I will tell you this, my point is very clear. One, my building has no master plan.
Okay.
Two, I want to have the same windows that Panorama has submitted, but I want to not have the bars, the mullions on the windows.
But then it's, excuse me, but then it's not the same plan that Panorama has submitted and gotten approved.
It is an amendment to their plan to let me have which my building has approved to let me have no bars on my windows.
So
I want, so
they've,
the,
they've submitted and gotten approved 6/1, and you
no,
want to
they
change.
haven't gotten approval for 6/1. They've gotten approval for 3/1. The
Okay.
actual historic window that is documented in a 1932 photograph is a 6/1 window. The designation report for my building, as well as the adjacent building, as well as 240 West 72nd Street, which is another Blum and Blum building, showed that those windows were 6/1. Landmarks has arbitrarily determined that 3/1 is the historic window.
Okay,
All of the Blum and Blum buildings in our district now have replaced, they now have 1/1, the exact same kind of windows that I have. Our facade is a hodgepodge of windows.
true,
There is no master plan.
true.
All of the adjacent buildings have 1/1. The adjacent Blum buildings to my own and the ones that I have provided photographs of on West End Avenue all have double hung 1/1 windows. The Blums, the
Okay,
standard is whether
I think we understand. Your building got approval for a certain type of window, or Panorama did, a 3/1, but you want something different.
A 1/1.
no, the point is,
This seems crazy.
this was done because of the time constraints. This was done at the same time in March, and my building gave me approval because our windows are due to start being installed in May. Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was listening before, but I got knocked off the computer. And I'm a neighbor. My name's Lori. Hi, I was listening to you.
Lori, what?
Singer.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick comment. I was listening and I thought everything was very clear. Barbara has a certain kind of window. She's joined the Panorama package. She wants the exact same looking window that she has now, which will be in metal, but no one will know. So essentially, yes, she wants the exact same window that she has now. That's all. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay,
It's
okay, I'm
not
sorry.
the window. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
I say, so she joined the Panorama application, in essence. They got a 3/1 approved at Landmarks. You're not happy with it. You want a 1/1, which is what you have now. And you're asking us whether or not the 3/1, which was approved already at Landmarks, or your desire and application to have 1/1, you're asking us to determine what we think is appropriate. And,
Yes.
and to add to that, you said that Landmarks has already determined that the 3/1 is historically correct.
No.
Is that correct?
No, I have said, and it's really unfortunate that this screen sharing is not working.
It doesn't matter. Forget the screen
All
sharing.
right, I'm forgetting.
We all understand what the two windows are.
Okay, what I'm saying is this, is that Landmarks, the Landmarks, I made an application for a declaration of no effect.
Yeah,
at
which
the
was
staff
denied.
It was denied because I did not have a historic window. Therefore, Landmarks bounced it up to be heard by the entire commission. And then the standard changes from whether it affects a significant architectural feature of the building, whether it affects adjacent
Right,
property.
we understand it.
We understand all that.
Yes.
We understand.
my application is not precluded. When I joined the package, my understanding with both Panorama and my building was that if I got approval and I have a contract obligation with Panorama to install clear tops. They just simply manufacture a clear glass pane. The only reason that I joined the package is because Panorama believed that if I was to contract separately with them, or with Skyline for that matter, to install windows, that there was a likelihood, and Skyline told me, that we wouldn't meet the deadline of June 30th for the local law inspection. And so therefore, in order not to be charged with the consequences of the failure of my building to comply with the local law and be responsible for paying for scaffolding and damages that my building threatened me with if my windows weren't done in time, I joined. I also, I might add, tried to get a restoration company to restore my windows. But because of the shortness of time and the cost of $8,000 per window of 6 multiplied $48,000, and no ability to guarantee that, one, they would get done in time for the June inspection by our engineer, and 2, that they could be certified for more than 5 years, I was obliged to go with the package on condition that if I got permission, the building did not object, nor did Panorama object to the installation of clear windows on the top, a clear window on the top.
Okay.
To look exactly like my windows have for the last
now.
50
Okay.
years.
I think Paige wants to say something, and then I want to make a motion.
I have my hand up.
Yes,
Michele.
I'm sorry. Madge, because I don't see Paige. Go ahead, Madge.
I have a few questions. Did you say historically the 3/3s are the original windows? I was confused.
3/1.
Madge.
3/1.
The original, excuse me, no.
They're
the
not.
original
Madge, we're
windows-
not doing this again.
Just a
Not-
yes. Those are not the historical windows, yes or no?
We're not doing this.
3/1 are not the historical windows.
Okay, number one. My second question is how many people are involved in this replacement? It's not building wide. There's no master plan. How many people are there doing it right now? How
The
many people are
number-
involved with Panorama?
Forget it. Forget it. Panorama got approved by LPC.
I know,
Paige,
but
could
how
you
many
please?
windows? How
There
many
are only,
windows?
excuse me, can I please answer that? There are 3
all right.
apartments. I have the most, all of us were asked to replace our windows based on the safety of the windows, not based on anything else. I have the most windows to replace of the original windows. Those windows, I have 11 to replace. My neighbors are replacing their facade windows on 7A and 7B, 7A and 8A. I have no idea of how many other windows they're being asked to replace. Other people in the building are being asked to replace their windows as well, but they are not facade windows.
Okay, thank you, Madge. Paige, you want to say something? Then Jay, then I want to take a vote on this.
Okay, yes, please. Thank you. First of all, this is a dog's breakfast in terms of a scope of work. It appears that the Landmarks Commission has failed this applicant hugely and not been clear. Panorama has stepped in with multiple types of proposals for different configurations, 3/1, 6/1, 1/1, double windows, not operable, not limitation switches that, so you don't open the window. I would like to make a resolution that we should support this woman's application for that apartment and recommend that on the basis of what she has done in terms of the research, it's very clear, 53 pages of a presentation is a lot of data that the Landmarks Commission apparently hasn't really taken to heart. And I think we should support this application the way the applicant wants it and suggest to the Landmark Commission that the clock is starting now for a master plan, and we won't look for another window in this building until a master plan is devised. But we wish her well.
Well, that
End
makes
of
no
story.
sense.
What?
I don't think, because the facade is already a humble, a jumble of different windows. It seems to me there should be an immediate master plan for the rest of the windows, because there's some windows that are 1/1. I counted maybe 5 or 6 floors have just 1/1 windows, and it's,
I don't think you understood, Peter. I'm not saying not to do a master plan, but she is very cogent in her research and has come up with it. She's happy with a 1/1 window, which comports with the majority of some of the later alterations. What I'm saying is, let this one go through as a 1/1 and ask the commission to base a new master plan on this panorama window.
Look at the facade again. It's
Peter, I'm not going to count windows because there are about 18 different types on that facade.
that's my
I'm
point.
trying to find a way to help her get her windows and encourage a master plan, because it doesn't matter what the windows look like right now. They're a mess because everybody's contacting somebody on their own and there's no continuity of a choice.
And LPC is going to say there should be a master plan anyway.
Exactly. That's my thoughts.
Okay, anybody else want to speak about this before
Yes.
we adopt a resolution? Jay?
Yeah, first of all, unless I'm mistaken, there will not be an application or a master plan unless the building submits an application. LPC cannot mandate a master plan. So we have to deal with the situation as it exists. And my understanding right now, and I have simply one question that I need confirmed, is if the 3/1 is in fact the historic window configuration, which apparently LPC has determined. Our question is, do we want to permit an applicant, forget all the business with panorama and everything. It's kind of not our business. If we have a historic window that's been determined, and this lady wants to have us agree and decide that a variation from that historic window is appropriate, that's the issue before us, not what Panorama has done, not what other people, let me finish, not what other people are doing, not the fact that there's no master plan, because neither we nor LPC, the only people that have control over that is the building. That's the issue before us. Do we want to permit an application for a deviation from the historic windows under these circumstances? My answer is no. Anybody else can give their opinion.
Can I just make a comment, Mr. Adolf?
Yes, you may.
My point
If the
is,
chair permits it.
yes, well, this is really critical. My point is that historic windows are the reason that Landmarks, the staff, is taking a mandatory position that if you don't have a historic window, somehow you have hurt with your improvement a significant architectural feature of the building. you have had a negative effect on adjacent properties, or what you're doing is not consistent with the characteristics of the district. My position is that that position is wrong, and it is particularly wrong when the actual historic window is a 6/1, and it is documented clearly in photographs. So to arbitrarily say that you have to have, and I have to have a 3/1 because it's architecturally significant to this building is totally wrong. And certainly all the other buildings of Blum now have master plans or no master plans. They all have 1/1 windows. So
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. I'm going to ask you to let the committee finish their negotiations because it is 8:24 p.m. and that may not be late to you. We've all had a hell of a day, I'm sure. We are listening to everything that you're saying. And I think the closest we got to what you want is what Paige said, and then essentially what Jay said. But I want to hear from Klari, and then is there anybody else? And I would like to vote on this.
okay, thank you for your times.
Thank you.
I don't know what you'd like. I do not, as I told you, I don't intend to vote.
Mhm.
If there are facts that I know, I can answer questions, but I'm not intending otherwise to say anything.
Okay, so could you put your hand down? And Jay, you still have your hand up.
No,
Do
I'm
we
sorry.
have, do we have anybody on the committee who wants to say anything? Do we have a proposal for a resolution?
Mark, go ahead.
Mark, can we cut to the chase on this? Thank you.
I would
Fine, sir.
dearly love to cut to the chase. So cutting to the chase is whether there's divided light or not divided light required in this instance. Usually when we vote for a deviation from what is considered the historic, and I get from the applicant that there is an issue about whether what LPC currently says is historic is or is not actually historic. So I
Okay.
get that.
Yes, we all understand that. Thank you.
Okay, but so right or wrong, the definition of historic in this case is the 3/1 that Panorama has gotten approval for. So the question for us is, do we insist on that or do we deviate to the 1/1? Usually when we deviate from an historic, it's because we would be disrupting and causing a hodgepodge that doesn't exist. And when a building has, for example, already had a complete restoration or replacement of the windows, and by insisting on the historic, we would disrupt that. That's not the case here. So there is an argument to be made that if you're going to do anything, you should do what is historically appropriate. My problem is that I believe the applicant is correct with her research that LPC in effect has gotten it wrong.
How would your resolution read?
My resolution would read, shame on you, LPC, but that's not one of the boxes I get to
we're not
check.
going to say that.
I really think that's
So I
unfair.
think that notwithstanding my almost knee-jerk reaction to say go with the historic, and by the way, 3/1 doesn't make any sense from an objective architectural standpoint. It isn't something that I would expect to see in a building like this
Doesn't like that, right.
in its original equipment. It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm reluctant to require something that doesn't make sense to me, even though I might, if they came up with 6/1, I could see that. And I could see requiring it in this instance, but that also doesn't make any sense because, you know, we're asked to choose between between A and B, and we're introducing C. That doesn't make any sense either. So I would endorse a resolution that would approve the application as presented, with a lamentation that it's not wood. But that's where I would go with this, because of the fakakta way that that's an architectural term. I'm sorry to use. The way in which this is being teed up for us, no fault of the applicant,
Right.
but none of this makes sense. And so I think the best way is to approve and to dump it into the laps of LPC and let them sort it out.
Yeah, sometimes we have to do that. And we know, even though it's only a few times we had to do that, let's do that. So is everyone okay with a resolution? Paige, you want to say something?
The
Or
only
you
thing
waive
is,
it?
I only to say that I agree with what Mark said. I would be a little shorter in my description and say that we're also supporting this because the majority of the existing windows currently are 1/1 windows. We know historically it takes decades for a building with prior ownership as a co-op to come up with the goods to make it happen. So I think this, I agree with Mark. Yes, throw it back at the commission and say that they did, I can't, and neither can Mark, because Mark is always the good guy making the comments, and I work with them. But I think they really screwed up here. And I think they didn't really evaluate all the options that are available to the tenants or owners.
Klari,
Okay, that's it.
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Klari, final comment?
Well, I just wanted to say in terms of what Paige had suggested adding to the resolution, I'm not sure that's accurate that the majority are 1/1. There are tons of different kinds of windows. I haven't done a count. Maybe Barbara Hoffman has done a count. I don't think you need to say that in the resolution. If the resolution is going to approve, and it can certainly say there are many different kinds of windows and virtually none are 3/1, if that's what folks want to do. I know that LPC did require a few years ago.
I agree to
another
that.
person to be 3/1.
Okay.
Larry, I agree to
just
that.
to make a factual statement that I think may not be true.
Thank you. Jay, did you want to say something? I see your
Well,
hand
I
is
was
raised.
going to echo what Klari just said, that saying that the majority of these windows are 1/1 it's certainly not accurate based on the photographs of the facade that we saw.
Mhm.
I think, in fact, there were more 3/1 than there were 1/1. And frankly, I don't think any of us can say for sure, based on this presentation, what the historic windows were.
Right.
And I think it's frankly, notwithstanding my friend Mark and Paige, that it's unfair to say that somehow LPC has inaccurately determined what it is, because frankly, the presentation in my mind doesn't answer the question. And absent an answer to the question, and I think the only conclusion we can reach is that the historic window was either 3/1 or 6/1. What we know is that it wasn't 1/1. And on that basis, I can't support an application to approve a 1/1. And as Mark said, we've done it in the past when the vast majority of windows have been changed to a consistent formation. But in this case, that's not the case. So if the resolution is to approve this application, I'll vote against it.
Okay, Susan, I said Jay was the last, but now you are the last comment, and then we will vote on the resolution to approve with those little tweaks in it. All right, Susan.
Much as it pains me, I agree with Jay. I'm voting against it.
All right.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jay.
so let's take a vote on the resolution to approve. We don't have to say we're dumping it in the lap of landmarks. We can agree that that the facade has a hodgepodge of different windows. You'll have to hear Ms. Hoffman what Landmark says about this, and we essentially agree with the resolution. Essentially reflects what Paige has said, and so I'll take the vote.
Well, can you be a little more?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the minutes here, and I've got to do the resolution. I don't understand
what the
that anymore.
resolution will say.
Approved. I don't know. Help me, Paige. Unmute yourself.
Very short and sweet, that we've listened to a very detailed, not always the clearest, I have to say. But the issue is that there are multiple window types on this building. It's uncertain as to whether the 3/1 or 6/1 has to be confirmed as the original historic window. In the interim, it makes sense that because there is no definitive information regarding the original appearance, that a 1/1 window would be acceptable in this case. Something like that, short and sweet.
All right, so Mark? your
Excuse me,
vote?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I know I'm not supposed to talk anymore, but I'm concerned that we're doing that. I appreciate that there's some time pressure here, but doesn't that mean then that that if there were a master plan, that this would be the wrong type of window to be approving?
But the whole building has different windows in it already.
No, nothing is the same.
Nothing is the same.
Nothing is the same.
Yes, we
So she
can't
shouldn't be
consider
analyzed.
whether there is or isn't a master plan. We have
Right.
no control over it. LPC
Okay.
has no control over that. It's strictly up to the building as to whether they want to submit a master plan. It would seem that they don't. But
Okay, so forget the master
Yeah.
plan. Never mind. I'm just going to vote against it. Thank you.
Okay,
Susan,
Can I make
Susan,
one other
if it's
additional
helpful
wait,
at
Ms.
all,
Hoffman, Ms. Hoffman, don't talk. Mr. Diller?
if it's helpful at all, I am very happy to require an applicant like Ms. Hoffman to use the historic. The problem is we can't tell her right now what that is.
That is right.
So that's why I'm voting for this resolution.
All right, and
Correct.
my
I
vote is
agree.
a vote for.
let's vote.
Peter?
I vote against.
All right. Madge?
For,
Jay?
No,
Klari? Oh, you're not voting.
I'm not voting, but again, I guess
Larry,
you want me to vote, or I should vote as having a conflict,
No.
although I don't have a
No,
conflict,
take
right?
the high road, Klari.
Well, okay, I'm not going to abstain then. I will not vote by reason of,
Of course.
present
Ineligible.
but not eligible to vote is
Right.
the,
even though that's not true, but, okay.
Right.
Sue
Anyway,
Against. No.
and Paige.
4.
So 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor, 3 against, 0 abstaining, and 1 abstaining for
For
cause,
cause.
as they say. So does that mean the resolution didn't pass? 4, 3, 0
no,
Yes.
it passes.
It carries.
carries.
It's 4 to 3 to 0 to 1,
To
right?
1, right.
So it passes.
If
Are there
Klari,
any non-committee board members still here? I don't think so. All right, so Ms. Hoffman, we voted to approve your application. Good luck with landmarks. We will pray for you.
And this is on the Maple board, right?
Yes, and I want to thank you for your time and diligence and the service that you are doing. Really, I mean, one of the things that I got out of this is walking around our entire hood and
Yeah.
just and looking at windows passionately,
It's a
as
good
well as the
idea.
other architectural features, and you've done a good job.
You'll
Thank
never
you.
look at a window the same way again.
Never. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to say we have a May 5th meeting, a preservation meeting on the West Park Presbyterian Church application to to landmarks, to unlandmark the church and allow it to be demolished. So there's some material that I got from Jesse today. I don't know if you all got it, so I'll send it out to you all again so you can read over the week. And I think this meeting will be part live and part Zoom.
do you know what time of day it's going to be? It's going to be at night or during the afternoon?
I think probably in the evening.
Can I offer some recent information? Just.
Sure, if
as-
it takes just a couple of minutes.
It's
Can you
going
send
to
it
take
to the
less than a
meeting?
minute. Less than a minute. Is that all right, Jay?
well, we're gonna have a meeting about it, so why not?
I know, but there's new facts that are coming to light. First of all, I won't be able to vote on this project because I've been working with the various owners and tenants for the last 15 years, beginning with Tom Vitullo Martin, who got me on the landmark, who got me on the community board. The status as it is now, there is a $60 million purchase price from Alchemy to, I think it's a 19-story building with a carve out in the basement for a basement theater, no windows, nothing. This is not something that the current theater complex, which is the center at West Park for the arts, it is fully committed. All the spaces are used, etc. It's back on track. The problem is everybody looks at the building as if it's crumbling. My office with 3 different structural engineers have done photogrammetry, which means a photograph with a special camera that measures down to the 16th of an inch. We have documented it. We have given it to the Landmarks Commission. We've given it to
I'm
the
sorry,
various.
I have a point of order. We're
Well,
having a special
because I'm
meeting.
not going to be here, Jay. I just want to say this.
You can be at the meeting whether you vote
I
or not.
can't
You
be
can
at the
discuss it.
meeting. I'm not here. Okay? I'm trying to do a favor for you.
Excuse me,
Also,
can
I
we have some-
understand.
Excuse me,
we
can we have
have
some
all that
collegiality here,
information.
please? Can we have
Yeah,
some
please.
collegiality here,
I'm
please?
trying to be kind and share information. You can plug your ears if you don't want to hear it.
Jay, you can leave. It's all right.
I was going to
Okay.
ask a question then before I leave, which was, there was a discussion about having a tour of this building. And I'm not sure.
It has, I haven't gotten to that. You are giving, there is a date that I understand has been given, and the people, Zachary and
I
Mim
don't-
Warden will
we-
take you through it.
We
Yeah.
don't know anything about
Yeah,
it.
Jay, I'll follow. I got some information today, but I was
It's
slammed. with
all
some other
running
work.
very quickly because we're trying to get you guys in front of the issue before you start reading the newspapers. So I'm doing the best I can in giving it to you. All I know that's on the table is $60 million for a clean, cleared, demolished site.
Okay.
That is the most important thing because it doesn't,
We know
it's
that.
going to take months to get this thing, maybe a year to designate it. But the problem is you don't hang that kind of albatross, a sword like that, over a project with a time limit and all that money. It's not the way people do business. So
Okay, thank you.
go to the tour, enjoy. The interior is remarkable. The presentations that they have there in the theaters are terrific. The kids enjoy it. What the problem is, the building simply needs to be repointed. End of story.
Okay, Paige.
Thank you.
You're the best. Thank you.
Michele, did you circulate that article that I sent you that I asked you to distribute to the committee?
I'm not even sure. I'm sorry. Like I said, I was up at 5:30 this morning. I've been
And
slammed.
it
with
wasn't
work.
this morning.
I know it
was-
wasn't this morning.
It was
I-
quite a
I
long
don't-
time ago.
I know.
It
I don't
contained-
remember.
It contained all of the information that Paige is talking about.
I don't
So we
remember.
can be
I'll look-
fully informed.
I'll look through my stuff tomorrow morning to make sure everybody's fully informed. They
Let
have a
me
lot
know
of reading to do.
if you have it, please.
Michele, could I just suggest, whatever Jesse sent to you and the other chair, that not only should it be shared with the committee, I really think it ought to be shared with the whole board in
That's
I
advance.
agree
fine.
with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Thanks.
I agree with you 100%. All right, let me get on that. But in the meantime, I'm going to make a motion to end this meeting before it ends us. And thank you. Thank you for your patience, goodwill, and expertise that I rely on every single day. And thank you, Klari, for taking minutes. And everybody have a good holiday. And we'll speak to each other very soon. And rah, rah, Boston Marathon next. That's where I'm going to watch
Thank
it.
you, Michele.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Good night. Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everybody.
Barbara Hoffman.